line the whole notion that trade is about people, and thank you for that. But moving on to the notion of the micro, small, medium-sized enterprises, and of course you mentioned Morocco there. I can move now to the Minister from Morocco, because of course your remit basically looks after these smaller companies. Much of the employment in Morocco is actually by micro and small and medium-sized enterprises. So give us a sense of what's being done to help these companies, to help these businesses to really push forward.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thanks for the invitation, and I'm really very happy to share this panel with this distinguished and esteemed executives and representatives. I want to say a quick word on the feeling I have since the panel started. It was an ambition a couple of days ago when I came, and I delivered it in the speech of Morocco. It was this need for our multilateral organizations to push the frontier a little bit more from what is technical and what is normative to what is political. And I'm very happy to hear this from the two representatives that we have today. And this shows that with will and with courage, we can really push the frontier and the borders. And this is the debate that we need today. Because when you have rules, they will need to be enforced, implemented. And in all countries, whatever the topic is, SMEs, social dialogue, you will always find a dichotomy, a gap between what the market tells you, enforces you, wants you to do, and what the society demands and asks for. And it's much easier for governments, it's much easier for private corporations to abide by the rules of the market because they're well structured and they're linked to some kind of results according to some kind of theories that you know. While when you switch to societies, there is much more disorder, it's more difficult, it's connected with political willingness, it's connected with processes, electoral processes, democratical processes, etc. So it's difficult to craft efficient social policies that respond to societal demands, to counteract in some way what the market provides. And I totally agree with what you said, the Director General, is that when the effect is here, we need to provide these compensation policies instead of saying all the bad things we want to say on what is easy. So this is the first thing I wanted to say. So this dichotomy between market and society, and the ingenuity that governments need to put on the table so that they can provide social policies that take into account the changes that we need. For SMEs in particular, it's a good example, by the way. Yeah. It's a good example. Why? First of all, because the workforce, most of the workforce in all our countries is located at the small and medium enterprises. For Morocco, it's more than 74% of the declared workforce. And the economic fabric, the tissue, is in majority made of social and small businesses. But these small businesses do have the experience, the great difficulty to conciliate between the jury and de facto policies. The jury is what comes from the norms, the parliament, the laws, decent work, fair competitiveness, and de facto is what is lived every day by the workers, the salaries, the conditions under which they work, what the competitiveness imposes on the landscape, on the economic landscape. So first thing that we have to admit is that maybe our institutional organizations are not efficient enough. So first of all, one needs to make sure that these institutions are reformed, but they need to be reformed around a couple of topics. First of all, there are a couple of transitions. Digitalization is a transition. It has a cost. Who is going to pay the cost? Is it something that the bill is going to be divided between the companies themselves at the levels and the government? Are local governments, regions in particular, Do they have a role to play in terms of funding, depending on the institutional infrastructure of the country? The second transition that is important is on skills. Because when you talk about digital divide, you will need to upskill, you will need to reskill. The human resources managers can tell you that, and it has a cost. Retaining talent has a cost. Multinational companies do have HR policies to fund, to retain the talents. They work on a greater ground, but not, unfortunately, the SMEs. The third thing is, how are these SMEs connected to the larger ones with regards to the policies that you have in the country, to the investment, and to trade? So if trade is definitely, and especially trade through digitalization, so e-commerce is definitely an opportunity for very small and small enterprises, they do have to face more basic difficulties, and someone has to provide the trigger so that they can counter these very first hurdles before they get to the last thing is social dialogue, and I suppose that we're going to talk about social dialogue in detail later on, but just to say that collective bargaining is, in my opinion, the unique tool that we will need to provide for very small and small companies, but we need really to provide incentives, and Morocco has a lot of examples with regards to this field.
Thank you.